Welcome to the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast with your hosts, Mike Randall and Gus Kearns.
Welcome in, listeners, to the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast, where you can be anywhere else on the dial, but you chose to be here with us, Mike and Gus. We appreciate that. We're going to start off on some positive news, some positive notes. Florida's Kiante Johnson is being sent home from the hospital due to good health. He'll spend the holidays with his family and his parents. Prayers, good vibes to the entire Florida athletic community. Mike, I think this is the proper way, the only way to start this particular college basketball podcast. Agreed?
Absolutely. Great news for Kiante Johnson. Scary, scary situation. They still do not know, or at least they're not revealing publicly, nor should they. It's their own private life. But I'm just glad he's up. He's out of the medically induced coma, which is always scary. The word coma is a scary word. He is doing well. He's home. We don't know if he's going to play, but we know he's at least home and resting, which is what matters, especially during the holidays.
So we want to say happy holidays to all the listeners out there, no matter what you might be celebrating. Mike, how are the holidays treating you over there? I just had some gifts that were right near the podcast station here for the daughters. They're going to magically be wrapped post-podcast. So how are the holidays over there for you?
Yeah, holidays are good, man. Things are great. We got some games going on finally, at least some consistency. We wake up every morning and have no idea whether half the games are going to be postponed, but we're trudging along. We're finding a way through. Dr. Tony got the vaccine, so I think we got some positive mojo going.
Definitely positive mojo. Another team that has a little positive mojo. I just want to get your take on this as we record. Mike, what's your feelings on this West Virginia-Kansas situation?
And I went with Self against Texas Tech. I thought it was a great Self spot. You see, guys, I pulled that stat, Bill Self on the road there in the Big Ten.
Tremendous. It was hit at like 30%, right?
I just didn't see the Kansas is ready to dominate at home routine here. But Christian Braun, 6 of 12 from deep. Garrett, 2 of 3. Abaji, 3 of 9. Jalen Wilson, my guy, 4 of 9. Add that up, Gus. That's 15 for 33. That's almost 50% from 3. No one's beating them then. They're down 17 right now, West Virginia. Mountain Mama, take me home. Christian Braun. A lot of threes. A lot of threes, bro.
And speaking of a lot of threes and domination, Mike, let's hit back on Saturday where Gonzaga hit up Iowa with just too much of their own medicine. Zags win 99-88 at the neutral site. A couple things that I took away from this, and let's hear your take. I felt like they were, Gonzaga was very athletic on the perimeter, and then that contributed to the Iowa struggles from three-point land. Got a little bit ugly for them from three after looking absolutely phenomenal the week prior. I mean, one of the questions I had was, who's going to check Jalen Suggs? And apparently nobody is going to check him ever. He looks like one of the best players in the country. He really loves the spotlight. Timmy did just enough to stay side by side with the player that's going to win Player of the Year in the national NCAA. And Jolie Ayi continues to make himself some money here. He does not need the ball to impact the game positively. 18 boards for the swingman? Are you kidding me? And he had 6 dimes. What did you take from Iowa and Gonzaga and all of those shots that were made by both teams?
It's my own fault. I texted you right for this game. We went on the pod. We were talking about how we like Gonzaga. But then I did some research. I realized they had not practiced for 2 weeks.
Right.
And I'm thinking that's 4.5 I got it at, Gus. It's a lot of points for anyone. If they just had normal practice, I told you in the text I would have given 10. Shame on me for doubting Mark Few. Shame on me for thinking Gonzaga has to even practice to blow teams out. Shame on me for going with Fran plus 4.5. Again, I just thought the 4.5 was a bit much. I'm like, Gonzaga can lose one game. I don't know what I was thinking. You called it Jalen Suggs. Who's going to check him? The answer is no one. Away we go. What was the over-under? 207? Great job by Gonzaga. They don't even need to practice. They don't even need to practice, and they're scoring 100. I mean, come on, guys. Is it fair? Practice. We're talking about practice?
They don't need to talk about practice.
They didn't practice for 2 weeks. Oh, my Gisbert's wide open. In a neutral site. I mean,
You had a lot of things that you were really leaning towards there, and I tried to help you not lean that way. But
it's stupid. If they just had regular practice, Gus, I would have given like 15 and laughed about it. But I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, sometimes you get too deep in the metrics, paralysis by analysis.
They're impressive either way. And then Iowa, if you're Iowa, you walk away from this thinking like, okay, we can score with anybody. Now we just have to get some stops. Although the stops that are needed, I don't know if anybody's going to get stops against Gonzaga. I mean, Baylor is the next stopping point that we need to hit up. They stomp on K-State 100-69. Oh boy. I'll tell you what, Adam Flagler, he is balling, Mike. He's hitting 48% from threes. He is only turning the ball over once per game. The Presbyterian transfer is really hitting the mark, and he's putting up about 15 points per game for them. And Mike, are we okay with the Bears finding another productive guard on the transfer market to partner with Teague and Butler and Mitchell? Like, they are just loaded on the perimeter in the backcourt. I feel like there's Gonzaga, Baylor, and then a large gap and then another tier of teams. Do you feel like that Baylor is on a similar tier with Gonzaga?
Yeah, it's beautiful because Baylor has a style that's unique, right? Because they got the 1-3-1 and they have the zone, and it's just a different team. Butler's special. You're right about Flagler. It's wonderful because it's great symmetry. It's not three teams that are all going to run up and down the court, or it's not three down screen, back screen. It's a nice mix. But Baylor is good. Styles, they blew out Illinois. We can get to them a little bit later. But absolutely, they are head and shoulders above everyone else. Although if Kansas keeps making threes, I guess we got to put them in there.
Well, we saw what happened when Kansas and Gonzaga matched up. That got to be a double-digit type game. Mike, another team that might be in that tier right below the Bears and the Zags is Villanova. They pivot from scheduling to play UVA at MSG to playing a familiar foe, St. Joe's, and they ended up winning by 20, 88-68. Besides, Jeremiah Robinson Earl continuing to play like an All-America, what was your big takeaway from Villanova? Were you impressed that they were able to change with their game plan with the change of opponent?
Villanova is very impressive, and I think they have a good test coming up against Marquette. I may or may not have written that up tonight, Gus, for tomorrow night. They're playing very strong defense. They had the stumble against Arizona State. The defensive boards are great, one and done. Power the group, shooting the threes, no true inside guy. Do they need it? Probably not. Really curious because they go out to Marquette and they play a Marquette team that they're 1-3 against. Their last 4 trips out to Fiserv, and their only win was a couple points. They're laying 4.5. I'm into Jay Wright. I mean, every year sustained success, and given the impact of limited practice and COVID, what you're seeing is the teams that are well coached continue to be well coached, except for Coach K because he's dealing with a lot of turnover. But if you're dealing with a veteran coach, an elite coach with returning players, they're finding a way to get there. And Villanova pivoting, very nice job to St. Joe's, smoked them.
Totally agree there. And I think you're onto something with the coaching and the roster continuity. If you have one of these rosters, like many mid-majors, like our beloved Richmond and your guys Drake, have some like roster sustainability, and they kind of know the drill, and they're not going to change their system, and the coach is not going to change the culture. And yeah, they have a kind of a leg up instead of coaches and teams that need to get in and relearn and reteach everything from square one. Guess what? Those opportunities aren't there, and we're seeing that front and center with two of the biggest blue bloods in the country, with Duke and Kentucky, that maybe they're having some trouble because they just don't have that practice time and they don't have time to integrate those tried and true cultural team building dynamics that are needed to have the success that they're used to in those programs. Mike, I love that you have some run up. If you're not following Mike over on Twitter, please do at Randall Rant. Give the podcast a follow over at SDS Podcast, efficiency of keystrokes, of course. So please do those two things over on Twitter if you need some more college basketball knowledge. Mike, what about Wisconsin? I know there was no Carlik Jones, and maybe we should just name him to the All-America team right now, because if he's that valuable to Louisville, that maybe him not playing in this game shows his true value to that particular team. This edition of the Cardinals, and the Badgers shot at over 64% from three, and they only turned the ball over 10 times. Listen, Wisconsin seems like one of those teams we might need to place inside that next tier with Villanova. What's your takeaway on Wisconsin thus far?
Okay, I finally gotten over the loss to Marquette, which was just brutal. They didn't cover there. You know my thoughts on Marquette. But outside of that, they've been very, very impressive. 7-1, they beat Nebraska tonight. Didn't cover, but that's irrelevant. I mean, it is relevant, but not to this diatribe. It was a great blowout win over Louisville. Carlik Jones is very valuable to them. The Cardinals are not the same, nor can we assess them until Malik Williams comes back. Malik Williams, 6'11", 8-7 last year, just an integral piece because there's not Gus Uber talent on Louisville, right? You're not talking about like players at every position that are like elite players. They're solid. They have a really good coach. And Carlik Jones is in essence their go-to guy. So he sits out for some reason. I don't know if we knew about. Was it COVID? Did they ever say, or was it something fishy?
I did not have a report on.
Yeah, I don't think it was COVID. I think it was something. They didn't really get into it. But a 40-point pacing by Wisconsin, shooting 41.8% from three-point range. That's top 10 in the country. They just don't turn the ball over, Gus. I think they're number one in turnovers, offensive turnovers. They just don't have any. They shoot 77% from the line. And against 2-point, inside the arc, Gus, defense for the Badgers, 38.7%. So they're heading up to Michigan State on Christmas. So that's an interesting game. But right now they're 1-0. That was a pounding over Louisville. Louisville's going to get better because Mac will get it going. But yeah, I think Wisconsin is the team that's in that next tier only because the stink of the Marquette loss just really bothered me. You got to box out in a free throw, Micah Potter. But they got players all over the place. Yeah, they're deep.
They are a tip-in away from being undefeated and probably being ranked inside the top 4 nationally right now. That's what they are. That's what it is right now.
Yes, I agree. And Gus, I think this is a big game because the one thing you noticed, they are, what is it? Yeah, they're 6-7-0 at home. So the only road game they played was Marquette. They lost. So now they're going to go play Sparty. It's not a vintage Sparty team. Cassius Winston is walking through that door. Hauser was a little banged up, hurt his foot last time, lost to Northwestern. We'll get to that later. This is kind of a test here because they get this one. They got Maryland home, Minnesota home before they go to Penn State. Gus, we're looking as we're hitting to 2021 at a Wisconsin team that could be 10-1, including 3-0, 4-0 in the Big Ten. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I think they belong in that tier, like you mentioned. One of the teams that may not is UNC. With the fall, you nailed this game against North Carolina, but over the weekend they did get their win over Kentucky, and Ohio State held off UCLA. Mike, was there any quick takeaways that you had with either one of those games with the big brands in them? Or was it just kind of like, this is what we're going to watch because it's on Channel 2?
Ohio State was an impressive game. Liddell came back for this game, but he was not 100%. I think he had 6 points or 8 points. Really well coached. Great job by Holtman. And by the way, when I was sitting there trying to pick it, Gus, I just can't get – and I like Mick Cronin. I really do. And Mick Cronin is not like this. But there's still this UCLA is soft stink that I just can't get rid of. I think that was at a neutral, right? Was that in Indianapolis or somewhere that game was?
Yes.
So that one, it kind of didn't surprise me. It's back and forth. They hung tough. Chris Smith didn't show up for the game either, by the way. Didn't play well.
No.
UNC is just better than Kentucky. They're going to run them off the floor. Interesting is they took Platek. Andrew Platek, he's not starting anymore. Playtech, I'm sorry. He's not starting more. He's coming off the bench. I think it's a better role for him. The guy who's impressed me is he kind of looks like a Pillsbury Doughboy or did last year is Baycock. Armando Baycock is playing very well inside, very aggressive. Brooks with the rec spec seems a little banged up. He had 4 fouls tonight. He struggled against NC State. Baycott is really making stuff happen inside for this team. So Old Roy's got some bigs. They're going to get Manley back, right? Sterling Manley's got to come back. So they're doing okay. They'll be all right, but their guard play, Love makes a lot of turnovers, right? I think he's 4.5 turnovers per game. So it's just great. Besides Gonzaga and Baylor, Gus, everybody's got some questions. You know what I mean? Everybody's got question marks, but good UNC win. Impressive. Big comeback tonight. They were down 16, but yeah, I wasn't surprised. Kentucky's got to get it right. He's got the freshman. Who was the freshman kid who's leaving now? He's upset about playing time.
Cameron Fletcher, yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of surprising, right? We've never heard that. We've never really heard that from a Cal team, but we knew it was coming. And Ohio State, gritty, gutty, and they're going to be a tough out when they get totally healthy with Holtman. And they get Seth Towns back. I'm sorry.
Right, yeah, he found the floor, which is pretty cool. I'm happy that he's going to be part of that rotation now moving forward if he's healthy enough. I think he's going to be a scoring punch off the bench that they badly need with this particular lineup. And the player that's impressed me for UNC has been Sharp. I'm really impressed with his play down low.
Yeah, very good.
He's pretty skilled with the ball. And he is not afraid of the moment. But you're right. They have lots of skilled bigs. I think that's going to be an interesting team characteristic moving forward for UNC. And you're right. If they can just have Love kind of take care of things and not be a turnover machine, like you mentioned. And I know, playing that style, that UNC style, you're going to have that. He wants those opportunities. He wants to push for those opportunities. So you're going to live with some of those mistakes. But yeah, if he can limit that down to 3-ish, then I think we're talking about something there. And Love he's been so hot and cold. I'd love to see hot Love with the bigs there. That makes sense.
And my issue with the Tar Heels, man, is of course we want to like the Tar Heels. We love the Blue Bloods. We love Old Roy. Everything about them I love. Here's the problem. I don't see, Gus, a team that likes to run. And per KenPom adjusted tempo, they're 89th in the country. They obviously like to run, but they don't make threes. I think they need somebody's got to start making threes without play tech because they're going to run, they're going to push, we're going to slam high low with Baycott and Brooks, and that's not going to work against Iowa. Loss. Texas, who could match up with them inside. Loss. NC State tonight, not a great team, especially no Funderburk. He was out. Cam Hayes came back, the freshman point guard. But no Funderburk, that's a rough loss. I want to see them start making threes. And if they do, I think they can be an elite team, a Final Four team. But that percentage keeps hanging around 27, Gus. I'm going to cap their ceiling because I just think at some point, like they don't have a great point guard yet, and they don't make threes. That's a tough combo for a Final Four team, don't you think?
As much as you would like to rely on the 2-point basket and all of the twos that they're going to take close proximity, you got to have somebody who's going to stretch the floor. And I don't know if Leaky Black is that player right now. Mike, what in the world happened with Northwestern and Michigan State? How did that, maybe we were all a little bit too high on Michigan State, them living inside the top 5 in national rankings. Which Michigan State is for real? The one that is a top 5 team or the one that lost to Northwestern?
No, I think Michigan State has some issues. I think this is the emperor's clothes with them. And it sort of showed here. You saw all the stats about how Northwestern had not beat Michigan State in 8 years, 10 years, whatever it was. Sparties have good numbers, but they have some interesting problems. They do not force turnovers, so you can get comfortable against them. They don't defend the 3 well, right? Up and recover. How do you beat a Virginia? How do you beat a pack line team? You do what Kansas did tonight and shoot 35 of 36 from 3-point range. Fine. Northwestern came in boo-booey. Boo-booey, just take it over. 30 points, Gus, 5 of 6 from 3-point range. Northwestern 10 of 21 as a team, 48% from beyond the arc. And that's the thing. If the Spartans struggle against Oakland, they've had these moments and you're kind of like, okay. But where are they going for a basket? They going to Joey Hauser, 5 points in 24 minutes. I know he got hurt. Let's go into Rocket Watts, 5 points. They going to Kithier, 2 points. Josh Langford, great story, 9 points. Aaron Henry at 11 points. I mean, there really isn't. Or Gabe Brown's coming off the bench. I mean, we're excited about that. I don't know where they're going for points. That's the issue. So they're going to play solid defense. They're going to rebound. Boo-booey, you're in trouble. That's the issue.
I was hoping you nailed that. Perfect.
Right. How'd I do? I mean,
that was beautiful. And oh man, that was fantastic. And we'll come back to the home state here, and we'll talk some Rutgers. The rack is still a thing, and Ron Harper Jr. is legitimately playing like one of the best players in the nation, not just on his team or inside the Big Ten. Rutgers defeats Illinois 91-88. That's a lot of points for Rutgers, Mike. They love to slow it down, especially at the rack, and play at their pace. But they showed with this win over a highly ranked Illinois team that they can get out and run and score baskets, unlike a couple of the other teams that we just mentioned where they have trouble putting the ball in the basket. And I'll tell you what, Harper is playing all over the court. He's making threes, he's driving, he's making offensive rebounds, and they have some diversity with their positionless type of basketball, and they have a couple of bigs that are going to bang inside and restart the offense with offensive rebounds. Mike, talk to us a little bit about Rutgers, and what does this speak more to Rutgers, more to Illinois, or maybe a little bit of both?
I think Illinois is good. I think they're going to recover and be fine. So I'm kind of looking to buy them. They've now alternated wins, losses. Beat Ohio, lost to Baylor. Beat Duke, lost to Missouri. Beat Minnesota, lost to Rutgers. Here's a tester, Gus. Tomorrow, they're going to Penn State. Get your popcorn ready. It's a tough place to play. It's a guard-heavy team, new coach. Let's see what happens. That's a win. If they get that, I'll feel pretty good about them. By the way, then they host Indiana. That's another great battle. Mm-hmm. But Rutgers is for real. The job that Steve Pikiell has done, those that listen to the podcast have heard this. I'm sorry. Those that haven't, here's the story. Steve Pikiell was at Stony Brook. He coached him for years, couldn't get over the hump. Albany, Vermont. He finally gets in with Warney, the big man, gets a job, comes down to Rutgers, wasteland here in New Jersey. Nobody cares. Scarlet Knights, they're in the Big Ten. They can't win in the Little 10. The whole thing, great arena, the RAC, Rutgers Athletic Complex, but nobody goes. Now this guy who looks like Jack Klugman from The Odd Couple, okay, with Tony Randall, sort of frumpy guy, old guy. You see him in the library, looks like my dad. All of a sudden, he's getting massive recruits to go to Rutgers. Gus, this team is 6-0. They're 2-0 in the Big Ten. They are a legit top 10 team. I will say it again. They are top 25 in offensive efficiency per KenPom. They are top 15 in defensive efficiency per KenPom. They're top 50 in the country in offensive rebounding, and they're only shooting 60% from the free throw line. The team is legit. Ron Harper is a star, 37% from three. The job Steve Pikiell has done at Rutgers cannot go unnoticed. They should have made the tournament last year. They're going to make the tournament this year. They already won at Maryland, who didn't cover tonight against LaSalle. How is that possible? I digress. Rutgers is for real. Great job by Pikiell.
Unbelievable job by Pikiell. I love that story that you provided there. I thought you were going to go a little bit more personal for the new listeners, but that's fantastic. All right.
Yeah, Mrs. Randall, Stony Brook, 11 a.m. game on a Saturday. Pikiell gets over the hump. Now he's down in Rutgers. Who's up next? Ohio State away. Whoa, getting two. Ooh, a little frisky.
And welcome back to the Big East. Come on. James Bouknight went.
What was this performance? Oh, my God.
He went bananas, but they fell short to Creighton in OT. What a great game. What a great Big East game. And the Big East has provided us with a couple of cool moments thus far this season. And the one thing I'll say here is, man, you got to feel for R.J. Cole in that spot, the transfer guard from Howard, who's been doing great things for UConn and playing great in the backcourt alongside Bouknight. You got to feel for him in that spot. That's like, you don't root for that to happen to any student athlete. Just the same thing for Zagorowski when he missed the third of his 3 free throws in that Kansas game. You don't root for that to happen either. You always root for that overtime and for that moment to not be there for that player. But Mike, man, Bouknight's played super impressive. Holy smokes.
I'm sitting there on Sunday in the midst of my undefeated fantasy football season, which, by the way, guys, we have made the finals. And the people on Twitter who are coming at me like, you got to finish it off. I got Andy Behrens from Yahoo. I mean, everyone's focused on this matchup. And in the middle of my battle in the semifinals, I'm watching James Bouknight do these step backs. And I put on Twitter, I'm like, I got like a million tweets. Like, I think Matt Ryan has 2 touchdowns. And I think that Ito Smith has and all of a sudden I write, Bouknight, WTF. And by the way, thank you, James. I had Creighton -2. They go to OT. They're up 5 with 10 seconds left. Guys, could we maybe stop the guy that's dropped 40 on us and is 5 of 12 from beyond the arc from getting a meaningless 3 for the push? Could we maybe could we get Tyrese Martin to shoot that shot, babe? Could we please? Get Bouknight needs a 40 burger, right? Just to push it. Oh my God. Unbelievable performance. You nailed it. You brought him up in the preseason, guys. He's for real. This guy's an All-American type player. Oh my God. What a player. Unreal.
Yep. We put him on third team All-America, before anybody got on the bandwagon. So I like to think that, we're original passengers on the Bouknight bandwagon for sure.
Everybody's yelling, no foul, no foul. Could somebody say just stop Bouknight from shooting a meaningless 3?
Someone.
Jeez, 40 burger.
All right, Mike. Did you take anything away from Texas or Houston? Good basketball being played inside the state of Texas. Both teams looking pretty smooth. They continue to roll. Anything there, Mike?
Yeah, Houston? Yeah, we have a problem. 6-0. I mean, they hit the boards like a wild hyena who hasn't eaten for years, seeing like a rabid animal, like running in the wood. They're unreal. Kelvin Sampson's got a style. God bless him. We got through the phone card scandal. Houston is aggressive. They pounded Temple tonight, 76-50 at home. Texas, Houston, there's defense in the Lone Star State, Gus. Great job. Shaka's saving his job. He's got the bigs inside. Coleman hits big shots. We know that already with the Maui Invitational, which was in North Carolina. Fine. Yeah, defense being played in Texas. Great job here. We got some really good teams. And what I love, Gus, like I said, is everyone's got a style, right? Houston rebounds. UNC's got the bigs. Gonzaga doesn't practice. Like everyone's got a style. They come out and they pound someone, and UConn goes, just give it a Boke night. It's beautiful. Everyone's got a thing, right? Virginia, down screen, back screen. Okay, I get it.
Thank you, college basketball, just for providing so much opportunity for us to be entertained. All right, Mike, let's get to a couple. We'll try to keep these 3 segments in every podcast. We want you to react to a couple of things on Twitter. Hashtag Randall Reacts. There's a couple of things that you always try to observe, and this is one of the parts that has really it shapes our podcast. But why don't we just make this the segment? What did you react to over the weekend, and what did you see? What did your basketball mind absorb and then try to spit back out for us?
Yeah, Gus. So I'm starting this thing on Twitter. Randall Reacts, because I just have nothing to do, so I just want to put stuff out there every night. First thing is I cannot take credit for this. I do not like to steal. I mean, I steal every original thought, but I will give credit when I steal it. It's like a bank robber who just names the bank that he's going to rob. Greg Peterson, our good friend who does the Hoopin' with Hoops podcast, coined the phrase fade Chicago State. Well, let me tell you, Gus, it's worked quite well. Chicago State fade away. They're 2-7 against the spread this year. They are horrific. Okay, so when they have a spread and it's 30, 33, their coach has opted out because of COVID. They lost a couple players. They only dressed 7. They're not very good. You want to argue who's worse, them or Mississippi Valley State? That'll be a separate podcast. You want to tweet us if you want that pod. We can break it down for you. That's the first thing is fade Chicago State. I'm just going to bet against them. If Chicago State gets on a heater, they're 2-7, Gus. If they end up going like 13-10 against the spread, that's fine. I'll take the chance because they also could go 2-22. That's number one. Number 2, Marquette against Xavier. You know I hate Marquette. I'm going to hate them all year. Okay. Adam Kunkel comes over for Belmont, and we had somebody on the pod last year, one of the beat writers from Belmont, right, telling us how great Kunkel is. Now he's gone.
Steve did a great job.
So now he's gone. He's in Xavier, and he's hitting the shot. And I think it was Scruggs, by the way, if it was on Twitter. If you go on Twitter, you could see it somewhere. Somebody had it. Maybe it's Doster, where like somebody, as Kunkel's letting it go, he's like, that blank is good, right? You can hear him because there's nobody in the stands. Kunkel hits it. Great job there. Caught my eye. I got to be the only person. I'm under quarantine right now. God willing, I'm okay. But because I'm home and I'm quarantined, I got to watch a little Texas A&M Wofford, Gus, which was a lot of fun. We got Buzz Williams sweating through his shirt. Wofford has like 55% of their points from 3. It's a lot of fun. They started the game hitting their first 5 threes, which was fantastic. So that was good. And my final one, Gus, Demoy Hodge from Cleveland State, JUCO transfer from the State College of Florida, 46 points. That's a Cleveland State record. 10 of 15 from 3. That's a Cleveland State record. 8 threes in the first half. Say it with me. That's a Cleveland State record. Okay. So great job all around. That's the stuff that I noticed. I try to put it out every single night. Man, college basketball is great, even in a quarantine, huh, partner?
Oh man, I love all of those. Buzz, sweating very aggressively, and yeah, when we talked to Stephen about Belmont, I felt like between when Kunkel before the transfer, he and Murphy could make up one of the more underrated backcourts in the nation, and I think both of them are proven. Murphy's playing great for Belmont, running the point, and Kunkel obviously is having impact once he got eligible right away, winning games right out of the gate, and if he's going to do that off the bench. To complement what Scruggs does, I think that maybe Xavier makes a run at going undefeated. I mean, obviously that's not going to happen inside the Big East, but they're playing well out of the gate and are properly ranked due to what they've done thus far. All right, Mike, you want to give the listeners a little hit up around the league for what we have going on here?
Absolutely. Just I want to do it every time, Gus, we come to the end of the segment here. I just want to give you a little something from the standings, from the random conferences, and again, throw in your thoughts. Let's start with the A-Sun. Gus, give me Liberty or give me no one. I understand Florida Gulf Coast is good. Lipscomb's still there. They're going to be an issue. Kennesaw State likes to cover. Stetson won against South Carolina last year, ruining their season. But to me, it's Liberty or nothing. I mean, the job that they do, the defense, the pack line, they're scoring big points. Richie is just a tremendous coach, the Virginia lineage. In the A-Sun, Gus, love Liberty, love the Flames. I think they're going to do it again.
That's one of those teams that reflects back upon our conversation previously. When you have a coach that has his culture and has and has his principles in line, and you mentioned all of those with his Virginia lineage, and you worked under Tony Bennett, and then this is his second go around at Liberty. Actually, he was the head coach, left, then went to Virginia, and is now back at Liberty. So he's very comfortable in his shoes on the sideline there. And you saw the success that they had last year and the year before. Liberty Flames, for real. I'm totally with you.
Yeah, Richie McKay, outstanding job. Listen, they played a slow pace, 349th out of 357
by design.
By design, Division I teams. Effective field goal percentage is like 100, okay? They shoot 40% from three-point range, 62%. Always going to be solid on defense. They don't hit the offensive boards, but your pack line teams don't. Liberty's going to be an issue there. Richie McKay doing an outstanding job. Next conference, we're going in alphabetical order if you can't figure it out. America East. I thought this was interesting because, yes, I bet it twice. UMass Lowell, Gus. And here's the thing. So it's always Vermont, and we know Vermont's going to be good, but they have really been hit hard with COVID. So they've been unable to practice, which, again, for Gonzaga doesn't matter. Everyone else, it does. And they really haven't been able to play. So their first two games were actually Monday and Tuesday, the last 2 days, back-to-back against UMass Lowell. They lost the first one by 8. They won today by 9. The spread was 9.5. Thank you. But the issue with UMass Lowell is that they are actually better than people give them credit for. They are only 2-4, Gus. But listen to what they've done. They beat San Francisco, who were high on to start the year. They lose to Illinois State in a neutral, not terrible. Ohio State by 10 away, true road game, not terrible. NC State, they got blown out, fine. And then they split with Vermont. I mean, we're here in the America East. Stony Brook looks a little bit down. I don't know, Gus. I know it'll be Vermont. I get it. But UMass Lowell is making it interesting here, no?
Here's why. They might have the player of the year in the conference in Obadiah Noel.
Yes.
He actually tested the NBA draft waters, decided to come back. He averaged, last year he averaged about, I think it was, 18-ish points a game. He's a bigger guard. And if you're a bigger guard in one of these like smaller conferences, then you can play all over the court. They run a ton of post-ups for him. He's so valuable at 6'4" in a conference like the America East. They might have the best player in their conference on their team. So anytime you're starting any competition and we have the best player on the floor, it's going to be an issue.
Yeah, 17 and 18 against Vermont back-to-back. America Athletic Conference. Always an interesting one here. Houston's great. I said that. SMU's actually coming around. And Wichita State, with all the chaos they've been through, man, getting rid of Greg Marshall, have actually been competitive. My issue here is going to be with Cincinnati. I don't know if this is going to be one of your top Cincinnati teams. In fact, I'm starting to think it's going to be a down year. Cincinnati, I watched them against Tennessee. When they play tough defense and they're up in your face, they can really mess somebody up. But they blew that game because they just crumbled down the stretch. Stupid turnovers. Vote inside is turning the wrong way to give somebody a charge when he has the ball in a drop step. Stupid stuff. And since then, they've go down the tubes. They lose at home to South Florida. That's a bad loss. Mm-hmm. Get blown out by Georgia by 15, and then just lost to UCF tonight, 75-70. So they're 0-2 in conference. They've lost 4 games in a row. They're 2-5 on the season, and then they play Tulsa, who, by the way, everyone hates Tulsa. I like Tulsa. I think
Tulsa's okay.
Frank A does a good job. He just won at Memphis.
Right.
So I think Cincinnati could be a down year, Gus. That's my observation of the AAC.
I'll go back to one of the teams you touched on. I think SMU is kind of interesting, and they have one of the best guards in the nation, Kendrick Davis. He is going to be among the assist leaders all season in the nation as an undersized point guard, and he'll run that thing. And they have a bunch of talent on the wing, and they have a couple of big men, 6'8"-ish, 6'9"-ish, and guess who's still hanging around? He might qualify as like one of those players where you're like, man, he's still there. Ethan Charwa is still hanging around, so he can stretch the floor a little bit as a big man as well. I think SMU is interesting, and we know that Jankovic always does a good job on the defensive end there, but I'm with you on Cincinnati. it might be like they kind of were still buying into what Cronin was selling last year, even though he wasn't there. Part of that culture still existed. Now that Brandon's like the head man and it's his team, I think we're seeing a little bit of fall off, and maybe we need to, appreciate the job that Mick Cronin did at Cincinnati for all of those years.
Yep, great coaches matter. Jankovic is good. He's on the hot seat once in a while down there. I have no idea why. Kendrick Davis, Muskrat Love. They're great on the boards. 38% from three, 8% from the foul line. SMU does not beat themselves. Gus, the Atlantic 10 is legit, and people may not want to talk about the Atlantic 10, or they may have forgot about them because a couple of years ago they had 2 teams in the tournament, something like that, whatever it was. I'll go right down the list. Davidson's always good. McKillop's got it going. Kellen Grady's starting to look like the old Kellen Grady a little bit. The Bonnies are good. They came out of COVID. They got a Sunni inside. Battled against Hofstra, came back to win that game. They're very tough. St. Louis is incredible. I know they stumbled against Minnesota because if they don't make shots, it's the old St. Louis. But they've made a lot of shots recently. They just had a bad game. So I'm all in on St. Louis. Your guy, Jalen Crutcher, out there in Dayton was super impressive. They upset Kermit Davis at home. Mississippi came in, got that one right. Crutcher hit some big shots, maybe the Ewing theory there with no Toppin this year. They're always a pain. VCU, you don't want to go to war with the Rams. And Gus, can we take a moment? Your JMU Dukes are down 20 at VCU and come back to lose 82-81 today. I mean, great job by the Dukes, no?
I'm so impressed. I'm kind of off of my basketball radar, but once I saw that, I was like, "You have to be kidding me! Go Dukes!" They're going to have a new basketball center down there, so maybe there's some good mojo happening for the Dukes. Go Dukes! Represent.
Richmond's really solid. Stumbled tonight at home to Hofstra. Big win for Hofstra there, but that's fine. And Rhode Island, of course, very tough. Just can't make threes, but. I think the A-10 is up as a whole, man. What do you think about this? I think they're really good. I'm
totally with you. And you might have left out the best player in the conference in Trey Mitchell from UMass.
Oh, yeah, of course, yes.
Right? Like, and UMass, you have some of your stomping grounds up there. But yeah, I am totally with you. There are a ton of teams that you just mentioned. You know what? There are a ton of teams that can make the Final Four. And we saw last year, Dayton. They very easily could have made a Final Four or won a national championship. So why can't St. Louis go ahead and make a Final Four? Why can't Richmond make a Final Four? Why can't that makes sense? It's not totally crazy. And guess what? Every single one of these teams that you just mentioned inside the Atlantic 10 holds the same characteristic that we talked about previously. Their coaches are in place. That the culture's there. They have a ton of returning players that know the system. Any one of these teams is going to be dangerous. And like you mentioned, specifically with St. Louis, if you're going to have a team that's going to shoot it at least decently, not outrageously, but decently from deep, then they're going to be okay. And we even saw what Richmond did against Kentucky when they didn't even shoot the ball really well. They still won even when they didn't shoot the ball really well against one of the perennial blue bloods that are usually a top 10 team. So yeah, I'm with you on the A10. The A10 is legitimately excellent.
I block out Trey Mitchell because I can't separate the great players from their coach. I think they take on the life of their coach. I don't like Matt McCall. Remember, Pat Kelsey agreed to take the UMass job, then he backed out. I think they went from the penthouse to the outhouse. I don't like McCall. Lost at home to Bryant. I called that one. That was an easy one. Besides a win over Northeastern has not been really impressive. I like Trey Mitchell. He's very, very good. Great touch around the basket, but down on McCall a little bit. Last conference I'll talk about, Gus, ACC, going in order here. We'll try to do 5 every pod. I think, Gus, there's a little less variation in the ACC. I feel like the bottom is better than it normally has been. Yes, my BC Eagles are competing this year. Nice win over Maine today, but didn't cover. Not surprised. But I think the Eagles are better. I think the bottom is a little bit better. Miami's got to get healthy. They're a problem. Clemson's playing great defense, but they struggle sometimes on offense. Virginia's going to be tough. Pittsburgh, bad news. Champagny. Their leading scorer out 6 to 8 weeks with an injury. A battle game league against Louisville tonight, but came up short. My thoughts on NC State. They got to get Funderburk back. I like this team. Florida State, of course, doing what Florida State does. Who they lose to at home? UCF, I think. Yeah, it's just Florida State does. But I think that overall, Gus, I think it's more competitive. I don't think there's a group of teams at the bottom that stink. Georgia Tech's solid, right? I think Notre Dame at home can win, right? And that was kind of my observation of the ACC, is that it's a little more, the bottom is elevated the overall conference.
I think so, and I think normally we would say this Duke team is excellent, or this UVA team is the defending national champion, or this North Carolina team has a talent to win, or like last year, like Florida State has the talent to get to a Final Four. There's no definitive team where you're saying like, oh, I feel really great about this particular team, and I think what that's going to yield is a lot more of what we saw with UNC and NC State, where you're just going to see a ranked team lose to an unranked team on a regular basis inside this conference. Like you mentioned, there's players all over this conference. You got Amar Sims from Clemson. Syracuse is going to be okay. Louisville has David Johnson. I know we talked about them a little bit earlier. Like you said, Notre Dame's going to be tough at home. Pittsburgh, obviously, terrible news with Coach Capel and their leading scorer. Georgia Tech with Alvarado running the point and DeVoe. I think they'll be okay. And how about this? I think it's going to be very similar to how they've been in the past, but there's not going to be that like dominant team that really stands out each and every week where you're like, oh, man, Duke is still so good, or oh, UNC still looks so good. They're going to live like their top teams are going to live, maybe in the 20s or in the teens nationally ranked and not inside the top 10 like they're used to.
Yeah, great call. Partner, I love this segment. Gus Got Next. Can you give me who you got next? I'm waiting to hear. I gave the teams, you give the players.
All right, so I got next. We got 4 players that we're going to highlight every podcast, and we're going to go out on the court. We got next, and we're not getting off until we lose, so we'll take next game winners. My first teammate is going to be Devontae Jones from Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina is not just a football school. The 6'1 junior is putting up 23-plus points per game on 56% shooting and 42% shooting from three, while posting a better than 2.5 to 1 assist-to-turnover ratio. Man, he can hoop it up for sure. Devontae Jones, love what he's doing, putting up giant numbers, been an unbelievably consistent scorer for Coastal Carolina. How about Jalen Tate, the 6'6 transfer guard from Northern Kentucky, is playing a very Cody Martin-ish role, like at Nevada for Coach Muss. The oversized, ultra-long point guard is doing everything for the Razorbacks. He's averaging over 10 points, over 10 boards, over 10 assists, over a steal, while shooting 43% from three. Once again, the transfer market has been kind to Coach Muss. Marcus Domask from Southern Illinois, the 6'6 sophomore, put up 26 points in a 76-73 win at Butler, and he's putting up 17 points per game thus far this season for the Salukis. And then we mentioned Scruggs earlier, but we got to throw Scruggs in. 6'4 senior is playing unbelievably well for the undefeated Musketeers. He is littering the box score with numbers. How about 29 points, 6 assists, 4 boards, 3 steals, 5 made threes in that Adam Kunkel game? We got next. I got Scruggs, I got Tate, I got Domask, and I got Devontae Jones from Coastal Carolina. We're not getting off for a couple games. I can feel it.
Those are fantastic choices. I saw Domask against Butler there in that game. I picked SIU. Great job by him. On fire, the whole thing. Great call. Tate in Arkansas is a total must player. Transfer guy, comes in. The whole thing was solid at Northern Kentucky. And Paul Scruggs seems like he's been there for years. All over the box score. Could be an NBA player, Gus. Paul Scruggs. Great job there across the board.
I think Scruggs could find an NBA career, definitely, if he's going to run a little point for them and show some ball handling ability and some creation, not just shot creation, not just for himself but for others. Yeah, I think there's a pathway for him to be an NBA player for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, Mike, and let's end off with what are 2 games? What is Mike like? What are 2 games you have your eye on for our gambling community out there that you're kind of leaning one way or the other?
Well, the one I wrote up for action, and tonight, like we did this, our betting card, okay? Went 2-1, did not get Kansas right, but did get San Diego State, who took St. Mary's to the woodshed after taking it out of my Colorado State team, and then got the NC State win. I wrote up already, I like the Nova Marquette under. It's 143.5. Look, Marquette is not stupid. They can't run with Nova. They're very solid. They have great balance. Kobe McEwen's the go-to guy at the end. Carton has played well. I just don't think they can match Villanova shot for shot. And Villanova's great on the boards. And Marquette's been good inside with Theo John. So I feel like they're going to D up. They're going to defend the perimeter very well, Marquette. And I think this is going to be a little slower than normal. These last 4 games have either been a Marquette win or a very close Villanova win. So I expect it to be low and slow. 71-70, I win. I think that line is way too high. So I took the under at 143.5. A Bellarmine, a first-year Division I team, Bellarmine went out and covered in Duke. Now they're playing Notre Dame in South Bend, 15.5 points. I'll take the Knights. They're very well-coached, fundamental, hit the UCLA cut, backdoor sort of thing. I could always risk a Notre Dame going nuts from three-point range, but Prentice Hub, who I like and is exciting, gives back 4 turnovers a game. So I think Bellarmine can keep that game close tomorrow. Very excited about that. Iona Hofstra, get your popcorn ready. That's a rematch of the game where Iona pounded Hofstra. Now, Hofstra's coming off the game against Richmond, big win, so I don't know if that's really what you want to have. And they still don't have Mihailik. We hope he's doing okay. He's on a medical absence, not COVID-related, but that's a good one. And then Creighton Xavier, another one I'm looking at tomorrow. Very curious. Right now, Gus, what do you think about this? Creighton favored by 7.5 at home against Xavier. Thoughts on that?
Seems like a little bit too much. How about that?
Yeah, I think it's a lot. I do like Creighton, and at home they're tough. It's right there. That's a tough one for me. They're going to have to score Creighton, which is what Marquette did. Remember Greg Elliott, who's had like 1 point since then, by the way, 4 from 3-point range. They're going to need a performance like that. Last one I'll mention also, I want to throw it in. Of course, we talked about it. Rutgers, Ohio State. Are you going with Ohio State? Does the Rutgers run end here? It's only 2.
Listen, I think that's one where it's begging you to take Rutgers, so I think you have to lean Ohio State there. They're the hot team. They're begging you to go one way, so I think you zig when they zag there. But just to speak on that first game that you mentioned, I'm totally with you on the under there. Villanova plays at one of the slowest paces for the tempo, and Marquette is in the 250s. So I think you're smelling the right scent there. I like that.
Yep, I agree. I just think it's going to be a low-scoring game. And I think people are looking at it because Villanova averages like 77 points per game and Marquette averages 74. I understand that, but they're not always playing against each other. And I know that Marquette went up and dropped to like 85 at Creighton. I just think this is a very close game. The numbers say it's close. The line is 4.5. I do think Villanova is going to win. I don't want to get involved in the 4, whether it's 5 or it's 2 or whatever. Right. I just think it's going to be I don't see both teams coming out tickling the twine. That's what it comes down to. And there's no interior presence for Nova, and Marquette plays good defense inside. So I think if you're Steve Wojciechowski, you're not going to say, let's run and gun with Nova. I don't think that's the way they play. So I think both teams slow it down, and I think the number is high, and it shouldn't be.
I'm kind of with you there tempo-wise for sure. And plus, when you get to these inter-conference games, these coaches know each other. They know what play they're going to be running.
Right, exactly. Right, yes.
So you have to pay attention to that too once conference play kind of gets rolling here. All right, Mike, let's give the our weekend forecast and just highlight a couple of games. We got Gonzaga and UVA, fingers crossed. Wisconsin, Michigan State, we mentioned earlier. You got Houston at UCF after knocking off Florida State. Mike, anything that you want to mention about any one of those games or something else you have your mind on, or do you just want to focus on Gonzaga and UVA?
Oh, Gus, rear end holes, Gus. I got an opinion, you know what I mean, on everything. The Gonzaga Virginia games at Dickies Arena out in Fort Worth. Until proven otherwise, I'm going to go with Gonzaga on a neutral court every single time over Virginia. Love Virginia here, but I think Gonzaga just eventually gets it going. Whiskey, Michigan State, really, really good game, man. I'm not. It's. I want to say Whiskey. I do. I think they have issues, and I'm a little thrown off by Marquette, but I think they're a little more polished, and I don't know Hauser's status. And then Houston, UCF, I'm all over Houston. Assuming they got all their guys. Dijon Giroux, a Swiss Army knife. He's the second best Swiss Army knife in the country next to Yves Pons. There's my Yves Pons reference, Gus. I think that Houston on the boards is just too tough. Love what UCF does, but that's where I'm at right now. Gonzaga, UVA, I'm taking Gonzaga. What's Ken Pom have that out right now? It's a really good question. They got Gonzaga by 6.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They also got it 71-65. That's a little bit low, man, for a team that's dropped 102, 90, 87, 99, and 95. That's a little low.
We know that Tony's going to try to slow it down and try
better
for opportunities, but I don't know if he's going to get there. I can still get 80. That's for sure.
Oh, I know. Oh my God.
Mike, we'll end with the last thing. Number one, are you an elf on the shelf household?
No, we have 2. We have one for the daughter, one for the son. We have Hart and Vincent.
Very nice. Okay.
Yes.
The elf in our house was named by my daughter when we first got the elf on the shelf, 12 years ago. And at that point, she was, limited vocabulary. So what are we going to name it? Elf. So our
Elf,
name is just Elf. And Elf has taken to hanging around with there's an old Undertaker doll. Elf hangs around with. Elf has also shown up in the Barbie Dream House. And Elf has shown up in the stockings. And today he was in one of the pots on the stove.
Oh, very nice. Excellent. Very good. Best one I did was outside. I just got tired. I went outside. Well, my son calls him Vincent. I just keep thinking of Vincent Hanna from Heat. I can't. So the only Vincent
movie, by the way, underrated movie.
Vincent Hanna's Pacino, but I can't think of anybody but Vincent Hanna when he says it. But that's the El Vincent. And, if he names it Wayne Rowe, we'll have a problem. Those are for your Heat fans out there. Okay.
We hope you guys have a great holiday. We hope that you spend a little time with your family, find some calm, and maybe you're going to step away from whatever work or school requirements that you might have, and find some inner peace with you and get centered, and then maybe you just enjoy a college basketball game along the way, like Mike and I might do this weekend. So, listeners, happy holidays out there. Thank you for tuning in. We totally appreciate it. Mike, anything else for the listeners out there?
Yeah, Grand Canyon being a pain in the rear to Colorado, who I think is soft also, Gus.
You're not down with McKinley, right?
He's okay. He let me down last year. He's no Armando Bacot. That guy is tough. I just think he was.
Cheers, cilantro. God cilantro.
I'm addicted to the appetite.